I heard Seth Godin say something on a podcast recently. People don't want your authenticity, they want your consistency. We've kind of got to this world where we feel like individuals end up being brands, and so people are like, let's be authentic, deal with people who are authentic. But think about it, you actually don't want your waitress to be authentic about the kind of day she's having when she's serving you her food. You want her to be consistent no matter what kind of day she's having. And so there's a place for authenticity, but more importantly, when it comes to leadership, people don't want your authenticity as much as they want your consistency. And so this week, talking about change and how you lead through change, the biggest risk you face as a leader in moments of great change is your inability to be consistent and show up. But that means something more than anything else. You have to manage you. My name is Mike Doffany, and 20 years of working with founders, startup leaders, individuals who are on a high performance track. We talk about all kinds of different topics. We talk about how you leverage Clifton's strengths in order to create a vision, how you face your fears, how you take action. But when you're leading through change, like this moment right now, if you're doing a tech rollout, if you're doing a reorganization, if you're trying to scale your company from founder to actually small to medium-sized business, this is a level of change where the first thing that requires leadership is you. Now, one of the ways you can most understand how you lead yourself is to get really clear on what it is your organization is going to need from you. There's a lot of great material out there. I really like William Bridges' model of change management and how change is physical, transition is mental, and how we actually need to focus on leading mental transition. But for this, I actually wanted to lean into something that became really, really important during the days of COVID. And that specifically was the 4 things that every follower really needs you to be consistent on if you are their leader. When COVID happened, a lot of leaders were having to lead through that change. This is another moment and another season very similar to that COVID moment in that a lot of companies are doing tech rollouts. And for the first time ever, we are wondering, hey, is this technology tool that I'm learning to use and I'm embedding going to replace me? That's never been a question before from most white collar information workers. That's not something that's come up. But now people are wondering, hey, what does this mean? And it's a big moment for them. And so managing and leading through this transition requires you as a leader to show up differently. Here's the 4 things. Gallup did a book called Strengths-Based Leadership a number of years ago, where for the first time, they asked 20,000 followers, people who identified specifically as not team leaders, what it is that made the greatest impact on them from their leadership. People expect a lot of different things, vision and creativity, all these other pieces. What came out was some very striking 4 beats that you've got to own yourself in order to lead well when leading others to transition. Instead of letting your feelings coming out, instead of just having it pass through and being reactive, be aware your team wants the following things from you. I'm gonna hit all 4 and then I'm gonna talk about each one, tie it all together. 1, trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Let me say this again, trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Gallup found that is actually what leaders want the most, especially in moments of change. Trust being the first one. Trust is about being, again, this is where the vulnerability comes in and authentic, is that you're letting people in, you believe in who they are, but that requires you knowing them. Patrick Lencioni talks about the importance of vulnerability trust versus predictability trust. People often say, I trust you as much as I can predict your behavior. That's our typical definition of trust. If you're consistently late for a meeting, I tell you the meeting starts 10 minutes on time, 10 minutes before the time, or I simply make allowance to start the meeting 10 minutes after you show up. That's predictability. Lencioni would talk about the fact that vulnerability trust, which is creating environments where I can be authentically imperfect in front of you, allows my imperfection to exist while I'm still striving to be held accountable to a goal. That's a different conversation. Trust is about recognizing that imperfection exists even while we're trying to deliver. So 1, trust is something followers are really wanting from you as a leader. Do you trust yourself? And do you understand how much trust you have in your team? Do you understand how much they're making an effort? Are you holding them accountable to the goals while not dictating process? How much you trust? That's going to come back to how much you've made sure to put the right people in the right seats. But the first thing followers want from leaders during moments of change is trust. Compassion is the second one. Compassion is key. Well, another thing that I said a lot during the days of COVID change management and navigation was, while we're all in the same storm, we're definitely not in the same boat. If you are leading change, you will always be ahead of the people behind you. In fact, you'll have done a lot of work to decide that this is the right thing, that this is the right moment, or you've been brought in early on leadership decisions and prepped for the rollout to the companies. So you actually have been assimilating much longer than they have. So to be frustrated they aren't moving as fast as you think they should, to be frustrated with them having questions that you've had months to process and may or may not have been able to answer for yourself already using other sources, that's not their fault. And so compassion is about recognizing that while this change is happening to you, all of you, it's not happening at the same time or with the same impact. And those who are excited about it because of the stage of their life, others will be completely afraid of it. Trust, meaning make sure you have the right people in the right seats and then let them be that even imperfectly. Compassion, recognizing that, wow, my situation is not theirs. And I need to own the fact that I have to not project my situation onto them. I need to let them be there and express to them, I recognize you're in a different place. Stability. This is a big one. And back to you being a stable leader. They take on your stress. I often say that, if a decision takes a week to plan, you should take a week to plan the communication plan of that, because the decision is only half the battle. Delivering that decision effectively through communication ends up being critical. In stability, a lot of times we work so hard and put so much effort into the decision, the action, into going, I got to bulk myself up for a big change, like a tech rollout that may have, staffing implications, that might be a hard assimilation for the company. So much so that you just kind of want to bulldog it or bulldoze it through. You want to drive it. And in fact, you actually need to be more stable. You need to be more methodical. The more chaotic, the greater the change, the more you want to make small moves, the more you want to be more intentional. And in fact, your intentionality will express to people that you've been thoughtful. It expresses to them that you have actually planned for how this will be going. And so if they feel that you are pushing because of anxiety, you're pushing a timeline, you don't have time for questions, or you're afraid of questions, they will then adopt there's something I don't know. And if the leader, knowing all they know, is feeling unstable, how much should I feel unstable knowing I have limited information and I have limited opportunity to get questions answered? Trust, making sure the right people in the right seats, letting them be there and you letting them know you believe in them, even as imperfect as they are. Compassion, always understanding and expressing the expectation that people are going to experience this change differently. Stability, managing your own feelings, knowing you are ahead and you have the privilege of knowing so you can be less reactive. Hope. This is the part where most people think about vision, is that finding an optimism. This is where the critical word for yourself is that while you may not always know how you're going to get through a difficult change or a difficult transition or a concerning transition, you haven't simply figured it out yet. Expressing possibility, being open, being aware, critical here. For you, though, just so you know, as a leader, one of these 4 stages, trust, compassion, stability, and hope, is going to be more natural to you than others. You're likely to lean into that phase and forget the other 3 or the other 2 or maybe the other 1. You don't get off the hook. Just because you don't provide it naturally doesn't mean it's not your job to deliver it. If you don't naturally do that, find somebody who does, ask for their opinion. This is where a leadership team is important. Or I say, if you can't find a partner, find a script, write it out. Anything that rounds out how it is you're delivering both your expression, your listening, your decision-making, your collaboration through this lens of trust, compassion, stability, and hope. This is what it's going to take to roll out these tech changes, to roll out the new economy, to roll out these new infrastructures. Most rollouts of technology are going to fail, not because of the technology being picked, but because it's a human implementation problem that requires great leadership. Because at no time in history has tech implementation had a greater impact on the people being asked to implement it. This requires more human intervention, not less, especially at the front end. trust, compassion, stability, and hope. Does that sound right to you? What have you found? Which of those feel the most accurate to you? Is there anything I'm missing on that list? Love to have you comment here. Like and subscribe. My DMs are open. Let's talk about how to support each other as we try to lead the humans while the machines arrive.